Welcome to Mind, Body, Soul Mastery, the podcast where transformative journeys unfold through authentic conversations. I'm your host, Brenda Stott Tomlinson, your guide on this exploration of self-discovery, resilience, and holistic well-being. Join us as we dive deep into the interconnected realms of mind, body, and soul, unraveling the wisdom gained from the messy, the challenging, and sometimes the most heartbreaking moments in life. Get ready for deep and meaningful dialogue that inspires and cultivates empowerment. This is Mind, Body, Soul Mastery. Hello. Today I have with me Alyssen Nguyen. She is a speaker and leadership coach with a passion for authentic leadership. She specializes in empowering individuals and teams to navigate challenges with resilience and authenticity. Alyssen, welcome to the Mind, Body, Soul Mastery podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure having you. And if you've been listening, you know we just dive deep into authentic conversation about the messy and challenging times in our life. And you know what? There may be many of them, but usually there's one that sticks out that was a profound growth and transformation opportunity. So, Alyssen, would you please share that moment of your life with us?
Yes. So to keep it brief, so growing up, my parents were split and they both had a fear in their relationships. And their biggest fear was going through life alone. They were so just terrified of being alone. And both of them handled it in drastically different ways. And so growing up for me, it was difficult to kind of choose which way I wanted to go. And so as I got older and I got into, kind of dating as a older teenager, I was about 17, 18 years old. And I didn't really know what a relationship's supposed to look like. I didn't have very good examples of this. And I kind of clung on to the same fear as my parents, was fear of being alone. And so when I got into these relationships and I started getting this emotional kind of connection that I never had before, I immediately became afraid of potentially losing that.
Mm.
That then caused me to be very clingy, obsessive. I was a massive overthinker, a big people pleaser. And that relationship lasted probably about 2 years and it was absolutely terrible. And a lot of lying, manipulation, cheating, on their end. But with my, kind of clinginess and obsessiveness, that really made that void within me even bigger. And I had told myself when that relationship ended that I can't go through that again. It was the worst, like, emotional and physical thing I've ever felt in my life. But when I promised myself that, the one thing I failed to do was to do the internal work to ensure I didn't just end up in the same relationship again. So I got into a second relationship, and in the beginning, everything was fine. There was no red flags, no nothing. And then as the relationship started going and I started uncovering certain things, instead of me saying, "Hey, you told yourself you're not going to go through this again," I immediately went into denial. There's no way this is happening to me again. We're just going to kind of pretend this isn't happening, which again made that situation a lot worse because I dragged it on a lot longer than I should have. And again, the same feelings, the clinginess, the desperation. And I just felt so lost, so broken. I didn't know who I was anymore. My identity was so wrapped up in the relationship and the other people that I had no idea who I was anymore. And what kind of turned that for me, because I didn't have, really a support system going through these situations. And when I joined the military, I had a roommate and I told her everything that was going on. And she was like, "What in the world are you doing?" And I was like, I really don't know, but I know something has to change. I cannot continue to live my life like this." And literally that moment, I got on the phone, I messaged him, and I said, "I want nothing to do with you." Blocked his phone number, blocked him, his family on everything, and then that's kind of where I started my journey to self-love, healing, and doing all of the inner work that needed to be done.
I love the roommate who reflected back to you. And yet, I'm also going to say you were also in a place where you were ready to hear it.
Yes, yes. The first time, I was not. The first time, a friend of mine, I mean, she didn't handle it in the best way. When I first went through that, I didn't know what to feel. I didn't know what to think about myself, and I actually felt really bad about myself, like my self-worth and all of that was very low. And instead of having I think I needed someone to kind of nurture me and be like, "Hey, it's gonna be okay. Like, it's not you," But one of my friends at that time basically was like, "You're an idiot. I told you so."
Mm,
And
not
that's not what I
helpful.
needed,
No, not helpful.
Yes, but during that time, I definitely think I was ready. I just needed someone to kinda give me that extra push there to make that transition.
And I think what's interesting, you're very self-aware that like this, I didn't want what I saw growing up, but yet you still didn't have the tools or a model, right? And this is kind of what happens to us. We just go through and do what we have seen or we know without questioning or without looking,
Yeah,
or sometimes we go to the extremes,
yes.
right?
My siblings have gone extremes in in other directions there, so,
Yeah.
yes, I'm very aware, and I'm glad I'm aware a lot of those things. There are times that I wish I was aware a little sooner, but that I think just sometimes is the beauty of the journey, like, of
Mm,
course, I wish it didn't play out that way. I wish I didn't have to go through that emotional turmoil, but at the same time, I'm thankful for that because I wouldn't be who I am today and have the relationship I actually have today if I would not have gone through all that.
yeah. Yeah. I love that you said that's the beautiful part of the journey, the messy and the challenging. No one really likes to think of that as the beautiful part of the journey. Yet, like you, when you can lean in and see what's really happening, what's really underneath, and what's really contributing, that awareness and acceptance of, oh, this is what I'm doing, or this is what it is,
Mm.
I can change that. That is the beautiful part of the journey.
Exactly, and in the beginning, I will say that was not the mindset around that. There was a lot of blame, a lot of guilt, a lot of anger, a lot of sadness, a lot of just like, "Why is this happening to me?" kinda thing, and when we're in the middle of it, we don't see what's gonna come out on the other side until we're out on the other side. So,
Yes.
seeing that now, I'm like, "Okay, I'm okay. I'm at a point in life where I'm okay with what happened. Yeah, I'm okay. I've moved past that. I've dealt with it. I've healed from it. There's no need to allow that to continue to bother me today when it happened, so long ago."
Yeah. Yeah. Allison, what would you say has been your biggest lesson?
I think my biggest lesson is understanding that the things that we all long for as humans can only be found within ourselves. That love that we want and we seek, we can't get that from other people. Like people always ask me, "Well, but you're in a relationship, like, don't you love your husband and you get love from your husband?" And how I explain it is, yes, I get love from him, but he adds to the love I already have for myself. He can't give me the love that I have for myself, only I can. So that's kind of how I explain that.
It's a beautiful explanation. And my mouth was like, wow, because I'm right there with you. But I'm going to ask the hard question. What did you do to find it within yourself to love yourself? Because you talked earlier about, I lost myself. I didn't know who I was. I was clingy. What did you do to love yourself so that your husband and that relationship now adds to your love?
Yes, that was a long journey. So to keep it brief, what I tell most people is number one, you have to spend time alone. It's very difficult to work through triggers and emotional things if you're constantly being triggered or you're constantly in that scenario or situation. So spending time alone to have that space for myself to one, feel the feelings that I was feeling. A lot of people, they tend to bottle it up because they've got work or they've got family or they don't want to show their weakness or whatever it is. If you can find a space where you can be alone, there's no judgment because it's just you. Let those feelings out. Cry, yell, scream, kick, whatever you have to do. Feel those emotions and get it out and then start processing, okay, what happened? What was my role in these relationships? Because a lot of people, they go to, oh, well, they cheated on you. Well, they lied to you. Well, they did this to you. Okay, but I played a role here too. It's not a one-sided thing. And so I had to take responsibility for my actions and look at everything kind of from a third party point of view and not from my own. And then just really understand that, again, the self-worth and the love that I can't get that from anybody else, no matter how hard I try or please other people. That was the biggest hurdle to get over, was the people pleasing. But once I was able to have more respect for myself and take care of myself, that allowed me to be like, okay, from now on, there's 4 questions I usually ask, and it starts with number 1 is, "Who am I?" Because we attach and identify to all these, other people and our job and all these things, and we have to drop all of that because we are none of that. And that for a lot of people is hard to kind of think about. But that's the first question I ask. And then it's, what do I desire to experience in life? Like, what do I want and what do I not want? And then what do I like and not like? And these things change all the time because, one year we like something and the next year we don't, and that's okay. And then the last one is, what are we willing and not willing to compromise? And
Mm,
number 4 is, that's where your boundaries kind of come into play. And when we can clearly identify the answers to these questions, it makes decision making and boundary setting so much easier because we know. And so when we're put in a situation that might challenge something or might have us potentially revert back to old behavior, we can sit there and say, no, I answered these questions. I'm confident in these questions. They're clear. And then you can make your decision based off this kind of new knowledge you have about yourself and this new kind of identity moving forward.
yeah. Yeah. So I was really hearing you took the time to know yourself.
Yeah. I guess for me, how I would explain that is I was able to become the person I was supposed to be all along.
Yes.
And when we're growing up, I feel like we're kind of born already knowing who we're supposed to be, but then we have society and our family and our friends and our boyfriends and all these things, and then we mold and shape ourselves into something drastically different than what we were originally, being. And so when I went through all of that, it wasn't necessarily that I changed myself, but it was that I just remembered who I was
Mm-mm-mm.
and became that person that I was supposed to be the whole time.
That is beautiful. Remembered who I was and became that person. Powerful.
Thank you. Yeah.
Powerful.
It was a good, yeah.
So if you think in the terms mind, body, soul mastery,
Mhm.
and now I'm not implying that we've mastered because as souls here having a human experience,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
that is our journey. That
Yeah.
is part of what we're supposed to do as we go to work, raise our kids, be in relationships.
Mm,
serve the community. Mind, body, soul mastery, our human experience is
yeah.
getting the three to work together in partnership
Oh,
so
yeah.
that we're not triggered, so that we do respond in a healthy way, so that we do love and respect ourselves,
Mhm.
have healthy boundaries.
Yes.
That is a journey,
Yeah.
lifelong journey. So far in your journey, which one has been harder to master? Mind, body, or soul?
Well, I was gonna say soul first, but wasn't sure if I should go that route. We'll talk about the mind.
Don't overthink it. Just respond.
Okay, I'll say those 2 are relatively equal, but they came at different times, the mind versus the soul. For me, I was growing up as a very negative person. Don't know where it came from, where it started, and people always are, "Why are you so negative? Why are you worrying about that? You're just a little kid." And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know." I just was just so down and negative and always went worst case scenario. And my anxiety was always like super high. And so getting to the point where I don't go immediately to worst case scenario and I don't have such negative self talk and I don't have such a negative view on the world, that took a lot.
Mm,
That
mm.
was really exhausting and a really kind of long journey to get to a point where it's not like that 24/7. Like, I still have my moments, but it was really bad before. So that definitely took a lot from me. And then on the soul side of things, I battled a lot between what I felt I believed internally versus what I was told to believe. And that caused a lot of friction because there was a battle between this is what you should believe on a religious standpoint versus this is what I feel is right and what I believe on a spiritual level. And so those two things battled for quite a while. I would say my spiritual journey probably started maybe 5 or 6 years ago with diving a lot deeper in the last 2 to 3. So that took a while to kind of drop that conditioning. That took a little bit to to
And it
drop.
still may take a little bit. I mean, it's so powerful and
Yeah.
because it's all around us,
Yes. Yeah.
what we should believe. So just right now with what's going on in the world,
Oh, yeah.
I'm just like, I don't know what's truth. I don't know if what I'm watching, if that's true or if it's been manipulated.
Yeah.
And this internal beliefs, between what I'm been told my whole life and what I still see around me versus my truth. I too have flipped my beliefs because now it's become, is this true for me?
Yeah.
And accepting that what may be true for me may not be true for you.
Exactly. Yeah.
That one's a huge one because that's not really what we've been taught. There's truth and there's a lie.
Yeah.
Hmm. The gray, true for me, may not be true for you.
Exactly. Yep. Yep.
Muddy waters.
Oh, yeah. That's a that's a big one. I feel like people always have to come back to, is that, like I said, what's true for you versus me are 2 different things. And I always wondered that, kind of growing up, how is it that 4 kids in the same household going the same circumstances all have a different perspective, a different way that they end up living their life, and it's when my sister says, "Hey, this is how it was for me growing up." And I'm like, "That's not how it was for me growing up." I can't tell her that she's wrong. She can't tell me that I'm wrong. So it's like
Right.
there's a lot
Right.
of different, yeah, truths, out.
Right, right. Would you agree that when you get to that point of what's true for me may not be true for you, the judgment thread begins to dissipate?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I feel like that's what helped me drop a lot of my kind of judgmental stuff growing up, because for a while I didn't understand how somebody could have kind of a different perspective on things than I did. But as I started kind of just observing a little bit more and paying attention to things, I'm like, "Okay, well, yeah, they grew up a lot differently than I did. So, of course, they're gonna have a different viewpoint on life than me." And then my mom grew up in a totally different time, you know? So of course she's gonna have a different view than me, and she was raised by not the same people I was raised by, so it's,
Yeah.
very interesting, and I feel like it opens your mind a lot more and allows you to understand where other people might be coming from.
Yeah. So I'm just going to tie what you just said back to that, what you said earlier, spending time alone
Yeah.
to think about these things and then to process what happened or how you see it differently or what do I want? What do I prefer? Like all of that is going to help bring out the truth
Yep.
of your soul, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. The truth of our soul, yeah, because everybody's going through life at their own way, their own pace, their own, everybody has their own story. And while things might be similar, things are also drastically different. And
Yeah.
it's just understanding that there's no one right way to do anything.
Right. That one is a powerful statement.
Yeah.
So life is messy. Things still come up, the boss, the job, the kids, whatever. Things still happen. We get triggered, right?
Oh,
Activated.
yeah. Yes.
When that happens to you now, what are
Mhm.
some of the things that you do to help move yourself through them?
There's various things. Kind of depends on what exactly the situation is that I'm going through, kind of calls for a different way to handle it. But I would say in most cases, I do my best to just remind myself that I'm here right now in this. A lot of my kind of triggers, if you will, come from my anxiety, which comes from things from the past or worries about the
Mm,
future. And we don't have any of those moments. The only moment we have is the here and the now. And so any way that I can bring myself to the present moment, which sometimes it's just paying attention to my breathing and breathing a little deeper. Sometimes I need to be aware of my environment to bring myself back to here because sometimes when my mind wanders, my mind and my physical everything, it's in that other scenario. It's not here. And so sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm touch my desk. I'm here in my room. I'm not in a car driving off a cliff right now, like whatever that scenario is in my head, just bringing it back to that present moment. And then if we're talking scenarios like, somebody says something that potentially might upset me or trigger some kind of response from me, I do my best to look at it objectively instead of like, oh, they're saying that to me and to hurt me because they don't like me and they don't whatever. I look at it as just, well, they saw my video or they saw my post. That was their response. That's how they perceived my video. That was their reality, their truth, like we've been talking about. And so I shouldn't really be letting myself get so worked up and bothered by somebody else's perception of whatever, I posted or I said or I did or, you know, so just kind of letting go and detaching a bit and understanding that there's not always a solid reason for everything.
yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Ah, Allison, it's been just a fascinating conversation. I feel
yes.
like we could just go on and on. So, last question.
Mhm.
What would you like our listeners to take away from this conversation today?
So what I want them to take away, which I didn't necessarily mention at all in this whole entire talk, um, is that during this journey and this process, whatever that looks like for you, is to have a lot of self compassion.
Mm,
For me, that was a hard thing to do. I beat myself up a lot. I blamed myself for a lot of things. If I backtracked, I always felt really bad. And it's understanding that the journey is not flat and solid and perfect. It's bumpy and the weather is horrible. And it's okay to backtrack. It's okay. We're human. We're going to slip up here and there, but to not sit there and get so negative about it and beat yourself up over it and just be aware and understand that's part of the process. Pick yourself back up and move on. and give yourself that grace during those times.
Well, that does tie back to what we talked about earlier. I asked you, what are the things you did to help love yourself and feel worthy, right? Self-compassion was probably one of those things top on the
Yeah.
list,
Yeah.
right? Was that hard to do?
Yes. I always felt like I had a super high standard that I was never going to reach, but I
Mm,
still held myself to such a high standard. And instead of me being like, okay, you're human, you've only been starting this self love journey, it's only been a couple weeks, like, you're not going to be perfect and good to go. And even some people ask me, kind of, are we ever done? Or do we ever get to that point where the negative self talk is never a problem or we never have negative emotions? And for me personally, I feel like that answer is no, because we're never at the end. We never get to the end. And if if we never had a negative thought ever again, we'd never enjoy the positive ones. And so there has to still be that kind of balance there, but we can manage those thoughts. We can switch over quicker and we can stop that thought process before it gets to the point where it's dragging us down and putting us in a mood. So, like, I've gotten drastically better. Like, if I went and probably talked to my mom or people that knew me as a child, they'd probably be like, "You are not the same person, not even close." But I do still have negative thoughts. I do still
yes.
sometimes follow that train a little too far. And I still have that. But instead of sitting there and being like, oh my God, why am I so negative? Why can't I just get rid of this thought? It's like, okay, we had that thought again. Why? What is making this thought come up again? And why is it bothering us so much?
The self-reflection again.
Yes, 'cause I feel like when you have a thought and you can easily get rid of it, don't worry about it. But if you have a recurring thought that you can't get rid of it, you got to sit there and think about it a little more and dissect it, but from the place of, hey, I'm third party, what's going on here? Not, oh, I'm going to follow this as negative as I can go. So, yes, that self-reflection is huge there, and that's what I think helped a lot is removing myself from that.
Yeah. Oh, such sage advice.
No, thanks.
Thank you so much, Allison. It has been a pleasure chatting with you. And so thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It was a great talk, great talk. I enjoyed it.
Thank you for being part of today's journey. I hope our time together brought you moments of insight, heightened awareness, and a spark of empowerment. If this episode resonated with you, I encourage you to share it with a friend. You can connect with me or today's guest through the show notes. I'm always here to offer support to guide you deeper on your path. Remember, mind, body, soul mastery is a continuous journey of growth. Be gentle with yourself as your awareness deepens. Grace and compassion will guide you forward. Until next time, I'm Brenda Stott Tomlinson, here to guide you as you embrace your journey of mind, body, soul mastery.